want to talk now about the factory and then why it's hard. Making stuff used to be really hard. I have made stuff in my career. I have bought stuff that was made. Getting something actually organized in the form of atoms, stuff you can hold, used to be exceedingly difficult. Walmart built its entire business on the fact that they knew how to buy cheap stuff in China. And lots of other people didn't. So they would say to a vendor, go call this guy in China, get it made for 1/4 the price, we'll split the profit. And so they were able to sell lots and lots and lots of stuff, ultra cheap, because they knew how to get stuff made. That was an asset. But that's shifting. And one of the reasons it's shifting is finding someone to make something for you is now about how good are you at using Google. Part of the reason it's changing is because once someone learns how to make something, lots of people can copy it easily and instantly. So this is one of my favorite objects. If you think it was easy to get this on the plane, you're wrong. Don't know if you know what this is. It's a lightsaber. I had to leave the blade at home because it was too long to get on the plane. But you'll just have to take my word for that part. This one doesn't have the sound effects on it. If you hold it, heavy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing. You could bop someone with this. And it's beautifully machined, right? It's got the little heat fins on it and the scabbard holder. What part of this was hard? Right? Which part of making this beautiful artifact was actually hard? Well, machine shopping stuff is now actually pretty easy. Finding people who will screw this bit onto that bit, not hard whatsoever. Post an ad on Craigslist, you can get people to do that for $3 an hour. There were only 2 parts of this that were hard. There's a good lightsaber noise. Thank you very much. The first part that was hard was being George Lucas. That's really hard. Right? That realizing that you could create a template that tens of thousands of fanboys would devote millions of hours to replicating that didn't look like a phaser. That was hard. That was really hard. And the second thing that was hard was taking the initiative to actually start a company to make these things. Right? Not pay a license maybe, I don't know. But just figure out that would be fun and initiate. Those are the only 2 things that are hard. So if you say, what I'm going to do for a living is wait until someone visualizes something really cool. And the other thing I'm going to do for a living is wait till someone else starts manufacturing it. Then I'm going to copy them, but be 10% cheaper. You have not earned my respect. Because that's easy. And if you're doing something that's easy, then it's not scarce. And if it's not scarce, it's not valuable. If it's easy, it's not remarkable. If it's not remarkable, I'm not going to talk about it, because what remarkable means is worth making a remark about. And yet we spend almost all day doing stuff that's easy, instead of realizing that labor has changed. We've gone from physical labor, which was the only kind you could do if you didn't have a lot of money to own a factory, to emotional labor. The willingness to take these intellectual risks, the willingness to put yourself on the line, the willingness to have people laugh at you, the willingness to make a connection and to be generous and to do art and to do things that matter. That's hard. What's easy is standing on a street corner in Queens as a day laborer waiting for some guy to pick you up in a pickup truck and pay you $3 an hour to lift heavy bricks. It's not work I want to do. I would find it too hard. But intellectually, could there be anything easier than going and standing on that corner? It's so sad that we have people who feel like they have no other choice in their life but to do that, but to wait for the system to tell them they're next. It's this pick me model. Pick me, pick me. If I only got picked by Groupon, then my business would grow. Pick me, pick me. If I only got on Seth's blog, then everything would work fine. Pick me, pick me. If I only got that job in that company doing what they tell me to do, then I'd be okay. And the pick me model is a factory model because what it says is I don't have the resources to own an institution. Therefore, I am subservient to someone who does. What it says is it's 1920 and there's a gatekeeper. Where does the word gatekeeper come from? Well, there's a gate. The people inside the gate get to work in the factory and the people outside the gate don't. There's a gatekeeper. I need to charm the gatekeeper or fit in enough to fool the gatekeeper or have a friend who gets me past the gatekeeper. And yet, all the people who are building things that matter and people who we respect and maybe are jealous of got past the gatekeeper by ignoring him and just doing something where there was no gatekeeper. That the magic of this global connection revolution is there is no gatekeeper. If you have access to the public library, you have access to the whole world. There's an internet connection there, go wild. That it used to be that there were two teams. The people who own the factories and the people who work in the factories. Karl Marx, Groucho Marx's younger brother, wrote a book about this, and so did Adam Smith. They wrote a book about the same thing, a pin-making machine. Before the pin-making machine, a skilled pin maker, you know those little pieces of metal in your shirt from Sims? 5 pins a day. After the pin-making machine, 4 guys right off the street, 10,000 pins a day. So Carl saw this, Adam saw this. Adam said, quick! Get a pin-making machine. Everyone. If you can afford it, get one, because you get to keep all the profit, because you can pay those guys nothing, because they have no skills. And Karl Marx looked at this and said, we are in big trouble. Workers of the world unite, refuse to work for someone who owns a pin-making machine. Well, Adam Smith won, and the guys with the pin-making machines made all the money. So there was this 150, 200-year period of time where if you owned a machine, you got rich, and if you worked on a machine, you didn't. And there were some intermediate, interesting, white-collar, middle-class sort of exceptions to this. And we can talk about those later if you want. But generally, that's the arc until recently. And then they invented this communications network. And now if you have a laptop, you own the factory. If the laptop is the factory, anyone with $800 has one. It used to be if you wanted to be a coal miner, you didn't start by buying a coal mine, right? You went to a guy who owned a coal mine who didn't work in the coal mine and worked there. Now, if you, want to do recombinant DNA research, you go online and for $450 you can buy the kit and do it in your kitchen. You don't need to go work for Recombinant DNA Research Incorporated. That I'm not saying that each one of you should become an entrepreneur. What I'm saying is each one of you owns the business. And the business is where do you bring your laptop every day? The business is when I bring my laptop to your place that you are sending me, am I building value for me and for you? And am I being paid appropriately to do so? Because if I'm not, I don't need you because I have my laptop. I'll go do it for someone else. Or I'll do it for myself. And we see this in the music business. And we see this in the fine arts painting business, and we see this in the business of people doing corporate coaching, and we see this in the business of people who make lightsabers, and we see this in the business of people who are selling accounting services to big and small corporations. It doesn't matter. The model is that there's this fluidity as it shifts, as we work our way through it, because ideas that spread win. If everyone knows your idea, you win. That is the value that's created. So the question is, where is that idea going to come from? And how are you going to make it easy to spread? So as we talk later today, I'm happy to go into tactics. How can I get my craft beer company to spread? How can I make it so that that guy there who loves the beer will tell that guy there who has never heard of it? Because almost all of you work selling something that most of us have never heard of. And the old model of getting people to hear of it was to yell about it, to pay money to a middleman, a newspaper, a radio station, a billboard, a sales force, to yell about it. And the new model is to make something worth talking about. So when you come to me and say, how do I get people to talk about gold-toe socks? Because gold-toe socks work really well. They prevent blisters. They help you avoid calluses. They keep your feet from smelling. And they last a really long time. I say to you, I will not talk about gold-toe socks because gold-toe socks are boring. And if I bring up gold-toe socks in a meeting or on my blog or in a conversation with a loved one, they will look at me like I'm even nuttier than I already am. But you say, but it's really important to us. We have a gold-toe sock factory, and there are people whose jobs are depending on it, and my job is to get people to know about gold-toe socks. Maybe I should lower the price. And there goes the race to the bottom. Because then, like Mott's, what you got to do is pay people less, and then lower the price again, and then pick me, get into Walmart, and then sell a lot, and then what? Or you could do what a couple 20-year-olds in Mamaroneck, New York did a few years ago. They said, you know, there are millions of girls in this country, 12-year-old girls, 13 even, who have a fashion problem. Their fashion problem is that they love fashion. They read Vogue when they can steal it from their older sister. They like talking about clothes. But they cannot afford to buy a new outfit every day. What if we could give these girls something to talk about? That's their market. Not everybody. Gold-toe wants to sell socks to everybody who owns shoes. These guys just want to sell socks to 12 and 13-year-old girls. And they say, well, how could we help them solve their problem in a way that they would choose to do what they want to do and I want them to do, which is talk about it? I know. We'll make socks in 133 styles. $10 for 3 socks. 3, not 3 pair, 3. And none of them match. So now, the 12-year-old girl goes to school and she says to her friends, want to see my socks, right? And that's fantastic. Because now the other 12-year-old girls go home and say to their mom, I need new socks. Well, when I first wrote about Little Mismatch 6 years ago, that was their first year they'd done $1 million in revenue. This year they did $40 million in revenue. If Gold-Toe grew that fast, they'd be bigger than Groupon, for God's sake. Little Mismatch doesn't make socks. Little Mismatch makes a story. They make a story for a tiny tribe of people. And now they sell gloves and they sell furniture that you can write on with a white erase marker and some other stuff. And they will grow until they stop growing, until they lose their nerve. But the point is, there's no internet in that story. That story is about the shift in culture that says the conversation about socks is worth more than the socks. It says that the tribe of sock owners, the tribe of those girls who don't have enough to talk about, is just waiting for something else to talk about. How many of you have an iPad? Raise your hand. All right, how many of you got that iPad within, 60 days of it coming out? So that means that you waited for Consumer Reports and all the other magazines to analyze it, and you looked at the cost-benefit analysis, and you did you made sure that the boss was going to let you expense the thing because you could show the productivity increase. No. You got it, because if you want to be in the tribe, you got to have an iPad. You show up, you're carrying the iPad, I give you that little nod, yeah, I got one too. You got a Dodo case, I got a Dodo case. You don't have a Dodo case, my Dodo case is cooler than yours, it's on back order, haha. So the Dodo case is this fascinating combination of a moleskine. If you say moleskin, you're not in the tribe. A moleskine and an iPad. So it's like a double whammy. I'm in 2 tribes. And I got mine before you. So that's even better. That's what we bought. So what Apple has built is this tribe of people who don't necessarily know each other on a first-name basis, but who think that there's an ethos of a cultural thing that makes a stand for something. And they have permission to talk to us. Maybe by email, maybe in their retail facility, which we go to without getting paid to go. Maybe because we tuned in using our own bandwidth to watch a speech, which is a commercial for 2 hours, so that later that day we can say, yeah, I saw him. Yeah, wasn't that cool? And 18 minutes in when he did that thing? And if you're not in the tribe, this all seems insane. If you're in the tribe, you say, you mean all it costs me is $400 a year and I get to have that joy of saying, want to see my socks with people who aren't 12 years old? That's a bargain, right? And that gives Steve and Jonathan and the rest of them power. It gives them the power not to force us to buy inexpensive Me Too ripoffs that they can make money from. It gives them the power, ready for this? To find products for their customers instead of running around looking for customers for their products. And you probably don't work in an organization like that. You probably work in an organization where you spend all your time finding customers for your products. You work for an educational institution that's got the classrooms, it's got the teachers. How do I get more students to apply? Right? You work for a factory that churns something out made out of metal. And you say, here, I made this thing. How do I get people to buy it? That's the model of marketing for 100 years, right? That marketing, as we know it, Green Giant, Charlie the Tuna, it came from Chicago. That's where it was invented. Mad Men was Chicago before it was New York. And the model was really simple. TV is a magical, magical device. And if you could find enough money to buy enough ads on TV, you would make the money back every time. So the art wasn't coming up with clever commercials. The art was just running them a lot. Right? The Green Giant, what is that about exactly? That there's this whole thing on Boing Boing of corporate mascots that are cannibalistic because it's the food you're supposed to eat speaking to you that you should eat them. Like, Charlie the Tuna wants me to eat him for lunch. It's very disturbing. So we all grew up with this, and we think it's the right way. And this new stuff is sort of this exceptional, flaky, edgy stuff. And yet, this isn't about dot-com bubble thinking. This is about a shift in when you wake up in the morning, what you're excited about doing. And when you go to bed at night, thinking about what problem you're going to solve tomorrow. The problems aren't about how do I get a record label. It's, okay, I'm not going to have a record label because that gets in the way of me doing the work. So since I'm not trying to please a record label, who am I trying to please? If you're a musician and you can get 3,000 people, just 3,000, to pay you $30 a year for your art, you're done. That's it. That's all you need. So if you spent every single day trying to get 10 new people to find your art indispensable, and maybe even as a bonus to tell 2 friends, you're on your way. At the end of a year, you'll have 3,000. At the end of 2 years, you'll have 6,000. Now you've made it. 6,000 people, and you're making almost $200,000 a year doing what you love. That model doesn't make sense to the people in the big tower in New York who run a record label and need the limos and the cocaine and all that other stuff to do their job. You don't need any of those people anymore. Those people were about making noise, and we're entering a universe where noise doesn't work. Noise doesn't work because spam doesn't work. You don't find out about things anymore from spam, from billboards or people yelling at you or someone sending you junk mail. When I got my first job in '84, it was the day they were installing the fax machine in the office. There was no voicemail. No one had invented email. I have no idea what we did all day. But, in those days, I got 2 or 3 FedExes a day, and I opened them. I got 2 or 3 letters a day, and I opened them. And I got 2 or 3 pink while you're out things, and I called people back. And I was working at a company where we were spending $18 million a year on advertising. It's not like people didn't want to talk to us. Now, before 9 o'clock in the morning, I've thrown out 100 pieces of media that I have no intention of responding to, that are directly at me. And I've ignored, I don't know how many banner ads, and I've ignored all this other noise. I go to the supermarket, there's 30,000 items in the supermarket. If one of the 6 sizes of Durkee's Red Hot was missing, would you miss it? Manager, where's the 18-ounce, 2-ounce free jumbo size? It was here last week. It's just inconceivable that we care about that. We don't. And yet, the people from the old guard are still making the noise.